Hi, Arva.
Hi,
Welcome.
Christine.
Hi, and welcome to our USN or United Spirit Nordics travel talk this week. It's such a pleasure having you. I've been actually looking forward to talk to you today. Because I've been, of course, following you and seeing what you've been doing during the whole lockdown and everything. Just to get, if we got any new listeners coming in, USN Travel Talk is something United Spirit Nordic is doing during the pandemic here, just to introduce you to our clients and tell you what's happening and how the opening is going on, and actually what you can do when you start traveling again. And this is aimed to travel agents and travel journalists, and also some consumers probably going to look at it and listen to us as well. But we try to do our best to, inform people how things are working after, the lockdown and when we're opening up. So, like I said, I've been following you. I've been seeing what you've been doing, and I've been checking out on, Frying Pan Adventures website and all the, exciting things you're having placed there. But many in Scandinavia or in the Nordic, like in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland, might not know who Frying Pan Adventures are and what you're doing. So maybe you can just tell shortly, what actually you are doing here.
Sure. So, Christine, thank you for this opportunity. And I just want to say right off the bat that the Nordic market over the last 7 years that we've been running the company, so we started in 2013, has been one of our favorite markets to serve for the simple reason that the kind of people we like to serve, a journalist rightly noted, are not tourists, but they're travelers. These are usually tourists who hate other tourists, and we'll get into that. But that's the kind of market that we've typically served over the years. So Frying Pan Adventures, in terms of background, like I said, we started in 2013, and we started because I have grown up actually in Dubai, and I, growing up here, had seen a very different side of Dubai than the side that typically gets marketed today. It was a very simple, a very humble city. There weren't any skyscrapers. And I went away to the US and I came back, and suddenly I felt like a stranger in my own city. And I, unlike many other people in Dubai, where families have moved, it's a very sort of constantly, like the turn in terms of the churn in terms of our community is very high because it's largely an expat population. But we have remained rooted in the same place, literally living in the same building on the same street since 1989. So, and the reason is because this is where our heart really takes all of my family in Old Dubai, as it is called now. So I really, when we started, my sister and I in 2013, the goal was we wanted to show people the side of town that we had connected with as children, a simpler side of town, and a side of town that we thought was incredibly delicious because it focused on the foods that the oldest communities of Dubai enjoyed eating. And these are incidentally also some of the old world cultures, basically. So places in the Middle East, the Indian subcontinent, North Africa, they have incredible stories to tell. And so we wanted to craft tours where you could both discover Dubai, but also use Dubai as a learning platform around some of this, this diversity of cultures that is represented and that's cooking here.
Exactly, because this is basically, kind of Dubai is almost like the whole world in little, or UAE is actually
Exactly.
like a little world in the world in one way, because it's such a waste, complexity of cultures and people, and of course with the different cultures, the different food cultures comes in place as well. So I think, there is of course one part of Dubai who has these high-end restaurants, and which of course is nice to do as well, but I think it's kind of not, sometimes people forget there is another part of it. It's similar like the street food and all that, spices and all the different tastes and all the different, local cultures and one within the local cultures who's people doesn't, maybe don't even know they exist here as well.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of the type of people that come on our tour. These are, or on our experiences, are basically these discerning travelers who are looking to learn about food and culture. And these are people who love hearing about stories, whether it's historical stories, political, personal stories, community stories. And our tours are really about weaving in those stories as you are tasting. So they're primarily food tours, and you taste along the way. But I can get into the presentation. We can sort of get more specific about what exactly we do.
Exactly. And then I can just ask you questions when there is anything.
All right. So I'm going to just get started here.
Yep.
So this is us, Frying Pan Adventures, as I mentioned, and we like to say that we do food tours in Dubai with longtime locals. Most of our team has been here since we were children, so we have a very deep connection with the roots of the city, and we love showing people those things that normally the big mainstream experiences may not show them. Like we love walking the streets, we love opening doors that normally people don't open, asking questions that maybe people normally are shy to ask. Those are the kinds of things we do. So we always tell people these are the experiences that we don't necessarily recommend, as I mentioned, to tourists. These are the things that we would want to do if our friends were to visit us in Dubai. These are the kinds of things that we would want to take them on. Let me. There we go. Okay. So as I mentioned, we really are targeting the culture conscious traveler, and we've realized that there is a real market for this. We were very, very blessed since 2013 to have the kind of customer base that really spread in terms of word of mouth. They were very, very affirming in terms of the work that we've done, and we're proud to have received many, many online reviews and accolades. One of our most recent ones is the Traveler's Choice Awards by TripAdvisor. But in general, what's interesting, I think, more than any of the awards or anything like that, is for us, the biggest sign of success is that unlike most tourism companies where a majority of their target base is tourists, we actually get a lot of residents, including old-time residents who come on our tours. And that is very revealing because even people who have lived here 30 years, we've actually taken people who have lived here 30 years, and I look at them and I'm like, what are you doing on the tour? You can take us on the tour. But they walk away being like, oh my God, we've either reconnected with a side of town that we've forgotten, or how have we been living here 30 years and we didn't know that this existed? And
but don't you think that sometimes is because they, either they don't know about it, like I said, but also they may be afraid of, venture into that area as well?
Yes, it could. There's so many. The thing with Dubai is there's all these pockets of experiences, and you can live in one pocket and literally not have to interact with the other pockets. And so there is literally, travel is not about necessarily boarding a flight. You can have an incredible learning opportunity right in your own backyard. And so we do get a lot of residents. We get people who, like I said, are longtime residents. And that for us is one of the signs that, we're doing something that feels very authentic and very core to the city. So let's actually talk about the different kinds of tours. And I think we also have, Christine will share a video, but we have three signature food tours. And if you've never done a food tour before, essentially what it is, it's an eating experience where you stop at multiple places. So you can call it a progressive meal, or you can call it a roundup of tastings. And usually the tastings are themed. So in our case, for example, one of our top selling tours is our Dubai Souks and Creekside food tour. This focuses in the historic Par Dubai and Dera area, the two areas flanking the Dubai Creek, which really was the lifeblood and continues to be the lifeblood of old Dubai. This is where you have the historic spice souk, the Dubai Museum, the textile souk. And actually, unlike our other tours, this one is in an area where you will see other tourists. I mean, it is a historic area, but even despite that, we still bring our own flavor to it, which makes it completely different from any of the big tours. So I'll explain what some of those differences would be. For instance, our groups are much smaller. Before COVID, we would never go over 12 people. Now we won't be going over 6 to 8 people. That is sort of it's going to be our cap.
Yeah.
for example, would never just take people and walk through the souk and say, okay, this is cinnamon and this is cardamom.
Yeah.
We believe in interactive learning. So back in 2014, we had done a lot of research into the spice souk. We had documented 74 different ingredients of the spice souk, including their scientific name, their uses, and so on. And we actually play a game with our guests called Spingo. Because we've realized that the kind of people who come on our tours are sort of like us. They enjoy healthy competition. They like to get a little bit intellectual. So we play a game called Spicy Bingo or Spingo, where we hand out bingo cards, and everyone has a different bingo card. And on your card are all of these different herbs and spices that are listed. And as the guide kind of walks through the souk, we pick up things, we talk about it. Every time you hear something, you kind of check it off. And there's an incentive for you to listen to the guide, because obviously you can become the Spingo champ at the end of the tour. So we play this really fun interactive game through the souk. The vendors know we're playing this game, which makes it even more fun because they try to help you along the way. And so it's our own unique brand of how to replay the souk in a completely different way than just sort of walking through it and calling it, quits. So that's one of the examples. Sorry, Christine, you're cutting out. Can you just repeat that, please? Maybe it's my internet connection. All right, so until I can hear Christine back, I'm just gonna, are you doing some tastings on the trip? Yes, so all of our tours involve lots of food. So for example, when we begin the tour, we actually go away from the souk. We go away from the touristy parts of the souk, and we eat one of the local snacks, which is chai and anda paratha. It's like this delicious egg sandwich with these nostalgic potato chips that every child who's grown up in Dubai has. We begin with a little snack there, and then once we cross the creek on the Abra, so the photo that you see of people on the boat, that's the traditional Abra, which is what you use to cross across the creek. On the other side, we actually do 3 tastings. We taste Emirati food, which is the local indigenous food. We taste Indian street food, because when you enter Pardubai, that is a primarily Indian neighborhood. And then we enter into a restaurant that has been around since the late 70s, and it's a restaurant that serves kebabs from the south of Iran. And for us, whenever we showcase food, we always, again, as I mentioned, we always incorporate stories of the culture, of how that community has impacted Dubai. I mean, there's, a range of different things that we talk about. So it's never that we just kind of leave the food on the table and say, this is what it is. There's such a wealth of opportunity to talk about whenever you bring a plate of something delicious out. And that usually happens over about 3.5 to 4 hours. And in a lot of these places, because we've been going there for so long in terms of the food, we have some great relationships with vendors. So you really feel like you're right at home. So that's the Dubai Souks and Creekside tour, which focuses primarily in the historic area. Then we, one of our oldest running tours is actually our Middle Eastern food pilgrimage. This is not in a touristy area at all. This is actually in the neighborhood in which I still live. And this is where it's only eating, essentially. It's Palestinian, Lebanese, Egyptian, Iraqi, Iranian. We're trying to showcase the incredible wealth and the nuances between the different cuisines of the Middle East. We will even, in some cases on our tours, we have such strong relationships with the vendors. They actually allow us into the kitchens to see how something is made from scratch. And when you watch something made from scratch, that's a whole other interactive and dynamic experience. But also when you're tasting something fresh out of the pan, that becomes an unforgettable memory, essentially. Christine, I'm still having trouble hearing you. Should I drop off and drop back in again? Maybe, should I do that? Let me just, yes.
There we are. Let's see. Let's go back to the slides. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, so that video sort of gave you a taste of some of the behind the scenes things that we have an opportunity to do because we've built these relationships over time with our vendors. For example, that delicious cheese dessert that you saw is kanafe. And you get a lot of kanafe across town, but the one that we picked is one of the closer to authentic Palestinian style kanafe, which is made with a mixed blend of cheeses. And when you have it made for you fresh in the kitchen and you're having it seconds after it's made straight out of the pan, you're spoiled for the rest of your life. You can't have any other kanafe after that.
And it also makes a kind of an experience. It's something like with these memories when you're coming back, when it's done, in a small group and it's just for you, in terms of you feel a little bit more special than not just being served it on a plate in a restaurant somewhere.
Absolutely. And our especially the gentleman, for example, who you saw making it, Abu Amr, these are people that we consider as part of our family, and we'll get into why that's important, even especially in a COVID world later on. But these are people who have become like our family. When I first started the tours back in 2013, my Arabic was pretty dismal. It still is actually pretty dismal. And we actually used that as a way of even making a deeper connection, if that makes sense, because I would use them to test out my Arabic. And on the tours, they would laugh at me, and it would be this constant, people could see that there was so much more than just food. And now these are people who literally, we have our own sign language with them that we haven't thought about it, but they just understand us and we understand them. And that's how it works with a lot of our places that have been with us for so long, And in fact, we've had, sometimes a vendor will say, hey, did you know that there was a tour guide on someone from a tour company on your last tour, and they actually came back with a group and they wanted to come into the kitchen, but we said, no, this is for Frank Van. And we have no agreement. Actually, we've never asked them for an agreement. We've never said anything. For them, their business is their business. But there's a sense of loyalty. That's it. It's just there. And this is like old school relationships, and it just works like that. And we're very appreciative of that. Unfortunately, Christine, I think we might have to communicate over chat because it keeps kind of spacing out. But hopefully you guys can still hear me. So if you need to, I've got my chat window open, so just ping me on that if I need to stop or if you have a question. Let's talk about the India tour. So Little India on a Plate is, again, one of our oldest standing tours. This one, like our Middle Eastern and Souks tours, also 4 hours. This one, we actually get a lot of private groups because it's really fun to do this in a private, even we've done public tours, but we find that it's a favorite with corporate experiences, with private birthdays and so on, because it's a very street food focused experience. It's in a very fun, vibrant neighborhood. It's in what we call Meena Bazaar, or you can call it Little India. And it's just covered with like shops and little gold shops, vegetable shops, all of the Indian community neighborhood things that you would need. And the foods are very tactile. So, for example, we begin with street food where you have to put this little, it's like a little hollow ball filled with two kinds of liquids. You put it in your mouth and it just sort of explodes. And it's really fun to watch people's faces as all the different flavors sort of get, they start hitting your palate. So that's our little India tour, and we feature both North Indian as well as South Indian. And our goal is to show people that Indian food is not just about butter chicken and saag paneer and naan, which are like the
normal ones.
Yeah, the normal. Like, we want to take people into what do Indians truly eat? What do we love to eat? So, for example, a South Indian filter coffee. How is that served? What is the contraption it's made in? How do you actually pour it from one cup to another? If you really wanted to have it like a local person, how would you do that? If you're going to a street side stall to order your samosas, how do you secretly get the chutney that no one else gets? So it's those little things that only the locals really know, that these are the things you would do. Those are the things that we like to focus on and we like to bring it there. So when you come, you feel like, wow, I'm really a part of this neighborhood. I'm really a part of this family.
Do you start any of these trips now at the moment?
Actually, all of these trips, we're offering them right now on a private basis because it is summer and I don't think we have volumes to kind of offer them every single day. So as and when we get inquiries, and we have actually got inquiries, and we actually recently got a number of inquiries from one or two people, and we clubbed them together as a public experience with six people. But then we also got an inquiry, which is really special, for someone who wanted to do a first date tour. That the first time they were going to meet this person was on this food tour. And
a blind food tour, a blind date food tour.
Yes, and for us, that's like, wow, that's such a creative opportunity, because the guide, who was Farida, my sister, sat there and said, I need to make this extra special. So as a team, we actually discussed what were the special tips, like what were the special things she could add in, like a little extra masala to make it really special without it seeming weird or awkward, because you can have those moments. So we think about tour choreography very closely. For example, a very simple thing that she did on the tour was she asked each of them, if you could be a food, if you could be a piece of food, what would you be? It's just a very simple, harmless question. And it sparked off a really interesting conversation. And after the tour was over, Farida actually messaged them after consulting our little crystal ball and said that if you picked this food, this is what it means about your personality. And if you pick that food, this is what it means. So for us, it's not just in the tour. Our experience begins before the tour, after the tour, and we have people who are in touch with us for years after. I get messages literally from people who've done tours in 2013, 2014, some of our earliest days, saying, I still remember this tour. I still remember walking down that street with you and tasting XYZ thing. Excellent. And that for us is very special.
And of course, then it comes to, we are in a pandemic and the COVID. What kind of measurements are you taking in place when you're doing these private tours?
Sure. So for us, that's been something that's top of mind. Already we were, as I mentioned earlier, we always focused on pretty small group experiences. So we were never doing mass market stuff. We were, interestingly, always handing out wet wipes at the start of the tour. So a lot of the things were already in place, but we wanted to also make sure that people were additionally comfortable given the climate. So from all of the protocols that we have seen, which are best in class, that people have adopted around the world, like tour guide, making sure that we're monitoring the health of the tour guide. They have to do a temperature check before the tour. Our groups have actually gone even smaller, so it will be 8 or less, and we won't go beyond that unless, for example, it's a family or a private experience, but our public experiences will be very, very small. We've moved from family portions into individual portions. This has been maybe the biggest shift, because when you are looking at Middle Eastern food, you're looking at Indian food. This is not food that is served like you
on the plate. No,
it's not. Everyone, the point of, for example, hummus is you all kind of dip into a hummus, but now, no. We've worked with our vendors to make sure that when food comes out, everyone has their own individual portion so that everybody is comfortable. Anything that involves sharing from the same plate, that's essentially off the table. We've converted those experiences. We hand out free sanitation kits at the start, so everybody has to wear a mask. And if they don't have a mask, then the sanitation kit has a mask, it has hand sanitizer. We provide people with all of that so that they can sort of be at ease throughout the experience. And one of the things that we are currently working on is basically tour guide audio. So we always used to use these audio systems that the tour guide would talk into it and everyone could hear. It just made sure that people didn't have to constantly stand around the guide and the guide had to shout. We didn't want that experience. So we always had that. It's something that now we are re-looking at. So we are basically in the process of deciding whether we continue with that system but have a more stringent sanitization around those systems and no sharing of headsets. Or one of the other systems we're looking at, which is based in Europe, is actually a phone system where the guide can talk into their phone and you can hear it on your smartphone.
That would be good as well, because then you're just having your own stuff. And
yes, so we've been that's actually in the trial. It's in the trial phases, and that's the system we would like to go with. We are facing some issues with our local internet provider. It's all based on internet, essentially.
Of course,
if that works out, then we can solve it. Otherwise, we still have a backup system. Either way, we want to make sure that people can hear the guide without having to stand so close. You should be able to stand wherever you are comfortable, and that's
true. So basically, of course, and you know that here in Dubai, of course, we are used to wearing face masks. We're used to sanitize. We're used to be getting measured temperature every time we go into a mall or a restaurant or a cafe or things. And of course, in other countries, when there's opening up and people hopefully can start returning here, maybe in October, November, that might be not the same. They're not coming from an environment like I would say back in Scandinavia, where in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, there is face masks coming up. They want to start using face masks in public transport or congested areas and stuff like that. So face mask, I think, is getting more probably during the autumn now, more I would say natural for them as well. There's a big debate on wearing them or not wearing them, and the comfortability and all that stuff. And I think also the distance, of course. Keeping the distance, that can be, I think people are struggling even a little bit downside here as well, sometimes as well. But I think it's just, notifying that we keep the distance and we're staying. And I think with the sanitizer, yes. And I think it's just getting that, awareness of it. So if, of course, when you have this sanitizing kit, it's really good, I think, as well, because then just people get that mind into, oh yeah, of course, even if they might not have it with them.
Yes, and our guides have also been instructed to constantly, we don't want people feeling anxious on the tours. We want them to feel comfortable. And so sometimes it's just when you do something, it's sort of a reminder to everyone else. So you don't necessarily have to say it, but if you're watching the guide kind of sanitizing, these are some things that now are becoming second nature for us.
Exactly.
Earlier it used to cause anxiety maybe, but now Dubai, at least folks in Dubai, we're so used to doing it. It's kind of what we do. So I don't think it will come across in any other way as, hey, the guide is just doing it. It's a good reminder for you to sanitize as well.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So I think it's just getting like I said, a second nature of what we're doing. Like I said, we're so used to taking a face mask with us when we're walking out the door, and you got them in the car or you got them by the front door. So everybody has access to, going in and out, anything. And at the moment, like you say, you even have your face. I have a few made in cloth, so I don't need to do all these, a little bit of throwing away face mask, all these, disposable things. I like to have it reusing. So so I got actually a tailor who's got tailors down in that area as well, who just makes them for me. So I actually have them matching some of my dresses.
Lovely. That's what my grandmother is doing. So my grandmother actually loves tailoring, and she's tailored the entire family with face masks. So a lot of people are sort of going in. You're seeing a huge fashion trend. So of course, if you want to come to the tour with a face mask that matches your outfit, you are definitely going to be a step ahead. And of course, you can wear a face mask while eating. So at that point, that's the reason why we give people the kit. So
Yeah.
you can put your face mask into the kit. It's not kind of lying somewhere over the table or whatever
Which is
else.
very good, yeah.
And so there's a lot of these little touches, and
Yeah.
we are very lucky that the guides on our tours are, there's a lot of attention to detail, but everybody is human. And if we always tell our guests, look, if there's something that makes you, this is before COVID actually.
Yeah.
Personally, when I do tours, I always begin by saying, if there's something I can do to make you more comfortable, please don't wait till after the tour to tell me. Tell me during the tour, because it's
Yeah.
something I can do for you and I can help you have a better experience. If there's something I can do better, just tell me during the tour. So we are very, very receptive to that, because we understand that people are from different cultures, they have different needs, they have different requirements, and we have to adapt as the guide. We have to make sure that everyone feels comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. So, what have you then been doing during the lockdown then? I know you had a lot of activities during lockdown as well.
Yes. So the lockdown obviously sent the entire industry into a frenzy. For us, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these small places, we focus on the small local restaurants. And we knew that they, like everybody else, was in deep trouble. The difference is that many of these places are not very technologically savvy, they're not marketing savvy. So there was a huge risk to what was going to happen to these places. How would they survive during this time? And so we started a couple of initiatives. I'll talk you through, I'm going to just skip over this. So let me move into, there we go. Okay, so one of the things that we did to support the small local places is we said, let's begin a program where we are basically giving them a reason to cook for a cause. So this is what we noticed upfront, is that nobody was obviously going to the restaurants. They couldn't have dine-in experiences. Many of these places were not geared in terms of online delivery and so on. Plus, people were very concerned also, I think, about receiving food delivery, or they were not in the radius. So the people who could really afford a lot of meals to get them home delivered were not living close to these restaurants to begin with. Okay. So there was a mismatch in terms of the people who wanted to support the restaurants and then where the restaurants were located. And the point is, imagine I want to support a restaurant. It's not enough to just order one meal. These places need volume to keep going. And so what we said is, look, we have a platform. We can't sell tours right now, but we can connect the people who want to give with these restaurants, with the people who actually need the food. You might be able to support and order 100 meals from the restaurant, but what do you do with that food? You don't want it to go to waste. Let it serve people who've lost their income during COVID. So we set up a cycle basically, and we called it a gift a meal program, where people who had the ability to gift a meal could come onto the website and they could buy, let's say, one meal, or they could buy 3 meals or 4 meals or whatever. We gave them a range of different packages. And we would take those proceeds, 100% of those proceeds minus any credit card fees, and that would be given to the restaurants. So we picked about 3 or 4 small local restaurants. We kept the whole thing very small and focused, because if we wanted to have impact as a small team, we needed to keep our efforts focused. So we picked around 3 or 4 restaurants, mostly the ones on our tours, and we would give them the funds to be able to cook the food, and then that food would get delivered to around anywhere between, depending on the day, 40 to 60 people who we knew had suffered income losses, either had lost their jobs or were on temporary unpaid leave because of COVID. And these are people that we had called up, we had sort of checked on the status of what was happening to them, how they were doing. So it wasn't just like, these were people that we were going to stick with from the beginning to the end of the program, the same people every day, making sure that they would get one meal, because for some people that was the only meal that they were going to afford themselves.
So how did they get in touch with you then, the families? Or did you get in touch with them?
We got in touch with them. So they weren't, we were focused mainly on the folks who were, I don't want to say single, but many of them might have their families back in a different country.
Yeah.
And so they're living, for example, in a shared accommodation with other people.
Yeah.
And we were blessed because one of our partners actually was accumulating a list of people who just needed things,
Okay.
different things. It could be a
Yeah.
family who, a lot of families didn't want cooked meals because they have children, they would prefer raw ingredients.
Yeah.
So you have to help them in a different way, right? Some people needed other kinds of supplies, but there was a huge group of people, especially people in the service industry themselves, or people, for example, let's say a cleaner in a school has now been put on unpaid leave. Where is that cleaner going to get funds to send
Yeah.
back home to his or her family, let alone survive in the city? You see,
Yeah.
these are people who are sending money back. There's
Money at home. Yeah.
depending on them. So in this case, we just help them worry one less by what we would do is we had the list, we would make calls on the list and ask the person, is this something that could help you? And if it is, please show us proof that you've been put on unpaid leave. We wanted to make sure that it was being used correctly. So we would get a written document, like an official. For most of them, we had some sort of proof which said this is what has happened. And then we would start every day, a meal would get delivered from one of these restaurants to support them.
Yeah. And I know, of course, we have also supported, actually United Spirit has supported as well, gift a meal. We've done at least something, a little part for us as well.
And thank you so much, Christine. It's because of support from people like yourself that we were able to serve close to 4,000 meals over 97 days. We never anticipated being able to do this much. There were waves of support literally that came in. And I realized I didn't put what the 96,000 is. The 96 is over 96,000 dirhams. So this is after you remove VAT.
Yeah.
Over 96,000 dirhams to actually support small local restaurants, which maybe is not enough to save them, but it's still a huge contribution that is directed in a very productive way, because you're solving for the people who gave this, who gifted the meals. You're solving so many problems. You're giving a restaurant business, which means you are keeping their staff as well paid. That means they don't have to lay off their staff. For the people receiving the meals, they have more money to send back home, but they also don't have to enter their kitchens, which are usually,
shared.
Shared. You can practice social distancing a little bit more in your home. So there was so many benefits, and we got a lot of positive feedback from the people who were receiving the meals, because these were meals that the restaurants were really putting their heart and soul into it. We were very clear that we wanted to give meals with dignity, both dignity for the restaurant. So we were not going to nickel and dime the restaurants. We were not going to say, give us a meal in 10 dirhams, No. You don't make anything in 10 dirhams, right? And you have to deliver the food. So give us a good meal in 25, 26 dirhams, deliver it, and the person who receives it should also feel like they've been respected, because nobody wants to be in that situation.
No, definitely. Are you still continuing on the gift a meal?
So we actually are giving out our last set of meals today. However, we have had people who reach out and say, hey, we can only give at this time, later on, or whatever else.
Yeah.
And so if that happens, we're still in touch with, obviously we have our relationships with the restaurants, we're still in touch with all the recipients. So if we get additional, we'll basically send out the meals.
Exactly. I'm just thinking, if there's someone who wants to support, they can still go into your website.
Yes, but they'll have to contact us directly, because the link to buy a meal now online is no longer there. So I mean, the program is there, but because what happens is then you'll get, like, let's say 100 dirhams today and 100 dirhams a week from now, and it's not enough to amass a whole set of meals. So we want to make sure that we have individual conversations with anyone who wants to give, so that they know where their money is going and when those meals will go on. Also, a lot of the people, thankfully, either have been able to go back home. So some of the people that were receiving,
that's what I was thinking, because there's a few with the repatriation flights and everything.
And hopefully now with the schools resuming, we're hoping that some of the people will also get their jobs back. So we're hoping that our goal was essentially to help people through summer, because we knew summer is going to be a really, really bad time. Summer is still going on. We've done most of summer. So I'm hoping now that things will get a little bit better. But whenever there's for example, we had stopped in the middle around maybe 10 days because we were waiting for a big set of, like someone was going to gift, 200, 300 meals.
Yeah.
And once those meals came in and we had collected a little bit more, we just started the program again.
Okay. So, but I know, of course, these have been in one of your heart children, of course, the gifted meal. But I know you've done other things as well, which is being more kind of entertaining and keeping people in touch with you as well.
Yeah.
I think that was the previous one we had here, and on the
There we go.
Spingo. And tell me about just shortly about what's the online Spingo bingo.
So the online Spingo is, as I mentioned earlier, on our souks tour, we used to play spicy bingo through the souk. This is just our way of bringing it into an online format. So we send you a digital Spingo card before the session begins. You log into a session very similar to this, and you have a game master who is going to pull up the photos and give you all of this information about some of the weird and random things that you would find in the souk. And as you hear it, you cross it off on your Spingo card. So essentially, you're playing bingo, but instead of the numbers, you have the spices. It's a learning experience. It's really fun. Whoever gets a full house actually gets a prize at the end of. So if you're based in Dubai, you get some of our favorite cookies and breakfast bars. But if you're based in another city, we will support a cause or a local vendor that you love. Either way, you will be awarded something. So there is a real incentive to win.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So that is our.
So even our Nordic listeners, when they're listening to it afterwards, can join into that online.
Absolutely. We just did a session last week with people who were not based in Dubai. They were based in another part of the world. And we just reached out to the winner and said, we can support a local business in your area. Tell us which business it is,
Cool.
And that's what we did. And that game is based on, as I mentioned, the research that we had done back in 2014. We had actually compiled a little booklet of 74 different ingredients in the souk. And during COVID, we actually brought that physical booklet into an online format. So people can actually buy this e-guide. It can be accessed through a desktop browser, or it can also be accessed as a mobile app, which is really cool. So we call it the Ultimate Guide to Dubai's Spice Souk.
Excellent. So you can actually have an experience, even though you can't come to Dubai at the moment. Maybe for some of our Nordic, listeners or people, they can actually download and learn more about the spices.
Absolutely.
So they would be perfect when they're doing this spicy bingo when they come.
It actually will definitely give you a heads up, because the thing is, when we took the game online, we had to add in a few challenges. So I haven't really spoken much. I don't want to give away too much, but there are some wild cards that we've baked in. And obviously, if you have prior knowledge of what the ingredients are, it'll help you. And we also have medieval food poetry quizzes in there, which features one of the answers is a Scandinavian proto-historic multigrain bread. So if you ever play the game, so there's a lot more levels that we've added now that it's gone online.
And the last thing I seen as well, of course, is your podcast.
Yes. So our podcast is something that we started in 2017, and then we revived it again this year because we felt people were hungry for those kinds of conversations to be brought into their homes. It's a very talk show style format. Basically, our podcast is available on all podcast platforms, and we focus on topics around old world cultures, basically flavors of the East. So we have one of our most fun topics was how many different ways can you use lentils, rice, and onions? And we just get our tour guides who are really passionate to talk about that. Or, for example, we go into food history. We actually got 2 food historians, a Palestinian one and a Turkish one, to talk to us about the history, the very highly debated history of kanafe, which is the cheese pie that we saw being made. The one that just got released today, so we release one every Monday.
Oh, nice.
The one that just got released a few hours ago was the 5 Chinese noodle dishes that you have to try in Dubai. And we've spoken to 2 Chinese food aficionados to give us a background on what those dishes are. So we share that obviously on our podcast, which you can find on our website, or any podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher. It's there everywhere. And on our Instagram, we always share videos and so on that back up the podcast.
Exactly. So that would be a good thing to kind of follow you on the Instagram as well.
Yes.
It is. I think we have a short video. So just to let them know a little bit of what they could do with the online spice bingo. I think I start that one there.
and welcome to Virtual Spingo, everyone. Thank you for joining me for what I can already sense is going to be a sensational session of Spingo. Come Trago can. If you're feeling phlegmy, just soak it overnight and chew it on the next day and the phlegm be gone.
Thank my teammate Farida for all her awesome work. I was doing the scratching and she was doing the anagrams, so it just worked out really well. And yeah, no, it was amazing to be able to play with all of you guys.
There you go. So that was the Spingo. So even Scandinavians and the Nordic as well can join us in doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think let's see. Where are we heading off to? And of course, if we go on, we done that one. I think that's exactly, we finished that one. So thank you, Arva, for doing that. And I was thinking, when do you think you're going to start off your tours again? You know, like as if, bearing in mind, of course, if tourists or if we from Scandinavia can come traveling down again, hopefully October, November will, you know, return some normality, at least back on tourists.
Yes, so we've already started accepting bookings for October. We think that our regular, like the full-fledged, you know, every single day of tours or whatever else, or every second day of tours, it really depends on the volume that the market is going to come with. But we're assuming that a regular tour programming schedule will happen from October onwards. Between now and October, we are taking requests on a private basis. So if there's 2 people or 4 people and they just want to go on a tour, we are going to take them on a tour.
Excellent. And also I know that, of course, since we work with Arabian Ventures, I know even that for those ones, if you got travel agents on the line or they're listening to as well, I know Arabian Ventures has been using you as well for doing tours. So even like knowing that they can, even if they have a bigger program and stuff like that, they have a, you know, tourist or their clients wants to go on a tour, they can also book it actually through Arabian Ventures as well. So I think that's going to go back again what I understood from them when I talked to product department.
Absolutely. And in a couple of days, actually, we are gonna, on our website, we're just gonna go ahead and list up all of our October, November, December dates. Usually people find it super easy to just go online and grab the tour that they want. So that's how we're gonna, I mean, there's already a couple of dates on there, but we're definitely gonna be adding more now that we can see more inquiries coming in.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Arva. Thank you very much for taking time to talk to us. I know you're very busy in the back there, and you know, with all the tours and your requests and all the activities you're doing. So it's been absolutely a pleasure talking to you.
No, this is a priority, and it was a pleasure. Likewise, thank you so much for the opportunity, Christine. And I really look forward to having more of an opportunity to serve some of our guests from the Nordic market.
Yeah, and if people want to get into your website, it's fryingpanadventures.com.
That's it. And yes, and we're super responsive over social media as well. So if you are on Instagram, please do make sure that you follow us. We have some really fun content that we like to share. We call ourselves content creators who do tours rather than a tourism company that creates content. So please make sure that you stay in touch. We'll have a way of bringing a little slice of Dubai to you wherever you are.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and continue a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.